Commander Veltar stared at the holographic display in front of him, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The quantum resonance scanner showed something that should not exist. According to every law of physics the Zephyrian Empire understood, space was empty in this sector, but the readings told a different story. "Run the scan again," Veltar ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded starships for over 2 centuries. His crew, a mix of different alien species from across the Empire, moved with practiced efficiency around the bridge of the exploration vessel Starpiercer. Lieutenant Zaxwi, a thin insectoid being with delicate antennae, worked at the sensor station. "Sir, I have run the scan 17 times. The results are consistent. There is a massive gravitational distortion approximately 3 light-years ahead of our position." Veltar's secondary arms folded across his chest while his primary arms remained clasped behind his back. This was impossible. The Empire had mapped this region of space centuries ago. Their records showed nothing but empty void and a few dead star systems that held no interest for colonization. Could it be a natural phenomenon? A black hole we missed during the initial surveys? Asked Dr. Nimra, the ship's science officer. She was a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with large eyes that could see across multiple spectrums of light. "Negative," Zaxwi replied, his antennae twitching as he focused on the data. "The gravitational pattern is too regular, too structured. If I did not know better, I would say it was artificial." The bridge fell silent. Artificial gravitational distortions on this scale would require technology far beyond what any known species possessed. Even the Empire, with all its advanced science and engineering, could only dream of manipulating space-time on such a massive level. Veltar made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Prepare a deep probe. I want to know what is hiding behind that distortion." The crew worked for hours to prepare their most advanced reconnaissance probe. It was equipped with every sensor the Empire had developed over their 1,000-year expansion across the galaxy. If something was there, the probe would find it. As they approached the edge of the gravitational anomaly, the probe's readings became more and more strange. Space itself seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt to think about. The probe pushed deeper, its quantum engines struggling against forces that should not exist. Then, suddenly, everything changed. "Sir!" Zaxwi's voice cracked with excitement and disbelief. "The probe has penetrated the barrier. I am receiving clear readings from the other side." "What do you see?" Veltar demanded, moving closer to the sensor station. "Star systems, sir. Multiple star systems with planets. Inhabited planets," Dr. Nimra gasped. "That is impossible. Our long-range surveys showed this region was completely empty." "The surveys were wrong," Zaxwi said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are at least 40 star systems hidden behind this gravitational veil, and, sir, the probe is detecting massive artificial structures, space stations, orbital platforms, asteroid mining operations. This is not a natural settlement. This is a full-scale civilization." Veltar felt his world shift beneath his feet. The Empire prided itself on knowing every inhabited world in the galaxy. They had spent centuries cataloging species, bringing them into their confederation, sometimes by force when necessary. The idea that an entire civilization could exist without their knowledge was shocking. "What species are we dealing with?" he asked. Zaxwi worked frantically at his controls, trying to analyze the probe's data. "The electromagnetic signatures are strange, sir. They do not match any known species in our databases, but there is something familiar about the technology. Patterns. Elaborate. The probe has detected what appears to be fusion reactors, but the design is unlike anything we have seen. The materials they are using, the energy signatures. Sir, I think we may be looking at a completely unknown branch of technological development." Dr. Nimra moved to her own station and began running comparative analyses. Commander, I am detecting radio transmissions from the hidden systems. The probe has intercepted several communication channels. Can you decode them? Working on it. Now. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface as she ran the signals through the Empire's universal translation protocols. Minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, she looked up with an expression of complete bewilderment. Sir, I have successfully decoded the transmissions, but the results are troubling. Troubling how? The language matches something in our historical databases. It appears to be a variant of what the Empire calls human standard, the language of the species from the planet Earth. Veltar's 4 eyes widened. Earth was in the Empire's historical files as a primitive world on the outer rim. According to their records, humans had barely achieved spaceflight and were considered a pre-contact civilization. They were scheduled for first contact evaluation in another few centuries. That cannot be correct, he said. Humans are barely capable of interplanetary travel. Our last survey of their system showed they had not even established permanent colonies on their neighboring worlds. Sir, Zaxui interrupted, the probe is sending new data. I am detecting what appears to be faster-than-light travel signatures within the hidden systems. Multiple signatures. These beings, whoever they are, have achieved advanced interstellar capability. And their technology? Veltar asked. Beyond anything in our databases. The energy efficiency alone is remarkable. They appear to be using some form of space-time manipulation that our scientists have only theorized about. Veltar paced the bridge, his mind racing. If humans had somehow developed this level of technology in secret, it meant the Empire's intelligence gathering was far worse than anyone had imagined. But more than that, it meant there was a spacefaring civilization that had chosen to remain hidden from the galactic community. Dr. Nimura, how many inhabited worlds are we looking at? Preliminary scans suggest at least 24 worlds with significant populations, plus numerous smaller colonies and space habitats. Sir, this is not a small settlement or isolated colony. This is a full interstellar civilization, and they have been hiding behind artificial gravitational distortions. It appears so. The technology required to maintain such a barrier would be staggering. They would need to coordinate the gravitational fields of multiple star systems to create this effect. Veltar realized he was looking at something unprecedented in galactic history. Not only had humans achieved advanced spaceflight without the Empire's knowledge, but they had also developed technology that surpassed the Empire's own capabilities in several areas. Set course for the nearest Empire base, he ordered. We need to report this to command immediately. Sir, should we attempt to make contact? Dr. Nimra asked. Veltar considered this carefully. First contact with a new species was always delicate, but this situation was unlike anything in the Empire's protocols. How do you make contact with a civilization that has clearly chosen to remain hidden? Negative. This discovery is too significant for a simple exploration vessel to handle. Command will need to decide how to proceed. As the Starpiercer turned away from the hidden systems, Veltar could not shake the feeling that everything the Empire thought it knew about the galaxy was about to change. Somewhere behind that gravitational veil, humans were living and thriving with technology that challenged everything the Empire believed about the development of interstellar civilizations. The question that haunted him as they jumped to faster than light. Speed was simple but profound. If humans could hide an entire civilization from the most powerful empire in the galaxy, what else might be hidden in the vast darkness of space? Ambassador Crixhan had seen many strange things in his 3 centuries of diplomatic service to the Zephyrian Empire. He had negotiated with species that communicated through color changes, mediated disputes between beings made of pure energy, and even established trade agreements with a collective consciousness that spanned multiple worlds. But as his diplomatic vessel approached the gravitational barrier hiding the human civilization, he felt a nervousness he had not experienced. In decades, the Empire's response to Commander Veltar's discovery had been swift and massive. Within days of receiving the report, High Command had assembled the largest first contact fleet in Empire history. 12 ships accompanied Crixhan's diplomatic vessel, including military escorts, science ships, and support craft. Yet despite this show of force, the ambassador had been given strict orders to approach with caution and respect. "Ambassador," called Captain Thelnax from the bridge of the diplomatic ship Harmony's voice, "we are approaching the barrier. The human probe has been tracking our approach for the past hour." "Human probe?" Crixhan asked, surprised. He had not been told that the humans were aware of their approach. "Yes, sir. A small craft emerged from the gravitational distortion shortly after we entered this system. It has been maintaining a parallel course at a respectful distance, clearly observing us but making no aggressive moves. This was already different from typical first contact scenarios. Most species either fled in terror when they encountered Empire ships or prepared for battle. The humans seemed to be simply watching. "Any attempts at communication?" the ambassador asked. "None initiated by them, sir. But our communications officer reports that they are clearly receiving our standard first contact transmissions. They have made no response." Crixhan considered this. In his experience, species that observed without responding were usually either very afraid or very confident. Given the technology they had displayed in hiding their entire civilization, he suspected it was the latter. "Take us through the barrier, Captain. Slowly and with all defensive systems powered down." The passage through the gravitational distortion was unlike anything Crixhan had experienced. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around them, and for a moment he felt as if the ship was being turned inside out. Then, suddenly, they were through. What he saw on the other side took his breath away. Space bustled with activity. Massive orbital platforms surrounded multiple star systems, connected by streams of spacecraft moving in perfect coordination. The technology was clearly advanced, but it had an elegance to it that was different from Empire engineering. Where Empire structures were built for function and durability, these human constructs seemed to flow with the natural movements of space itself. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission. It is in perfect galactic standard." "Put it through," Crixhan ordered. A holographic display activated in front of him, showing a human female with dark hair and intelligent eyes. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, wearing simple but well-made clothing. "Welcome to the Terran Systems Collective," she said with a warm smile. "I am Director Sarah Chen, representing the Human Council for External Affairs. We have been expecting you." Crixhan blinked in surprise. "Expecting us?" "Of course. We detected your discovery of our gravitational shroud several days ago. We assumed it would not be long before your government sent a diplomatic mission." She paused, glancing at something off-screen. "We have prepared docking facilities for your fleet at Station Harmony. If you would follow the navigation beacons we are transmitting, we can begin formal discussions." The ambassador found himself speechless for a moment. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Where was the fear, the wonder, the confusion about meeting aliens for the first time? "Director Chen," he finally managed, "I am Ambassador Crixhan of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. We had not realized that your species had achieved faster-than-light travel." "Oh, we achieved that quite some time ago," she replied casually. "We have been aware of your empire for approximately 400 of your standard years. We know quite a bit about your various member species and your governmental structure." "You have been watching us?" Captain Thelnax asked from behind the ambassador. "Observing, yes. We find galactic politics quite fascinating, though we have chosen not to participate directly until now." As their ships followed the human navigation beacons toward the massive space station, Crixhan tried to process what he was hearing. "Director Chen, if you have known about us for centuries, Why did you not make contact? We prefer to observe and learn before making decisions about contact with other civilizations. Your empire has had mixed results with first contact situations. We thought it best to understand your methods and motivations before revealing ourselves. The space station they approached was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its design was unlike anything in the Empire's architectural databases, flowing curves and organic shapes that seemed to grow naturally from the structure's core. Your station is remarkable, Crixhan said, genuinely impressed. Thank you. We designed it using principles of biomimetic engineering. We find that structures which follow natural patterns tend to be more efficient and sustainable. As they docked, Crixhan could see through the viewports that the station's interior was bustling with activity. Humans moved through corridors that seemed to be grown rather than built, and gardens flourished in spaces that would typically be reserved for machinery in Empire designs. Ambassador, Director Chen continued, we understand that this situation is unusual for your diplomatic protocols. We have studied your first contact procedures extensively. We hope you will not be offended that we have chosen to skip the usual stages of technological demonstration and cultural exchange. We are already quite familiar with your civilization. You have studied our protocols extensively. We have also studied the histories of the 847 species that currently make up your empire. We have detailed records of each first contact scenario, including the outcomes and long-term effects on the contacted civilizations. Captain Thelnax whispered to the ambassador. Sir, how could they have such detailed information? Those records are classified at the highest levels. Director Chen smiled as if she had heard the whispered comment. We are very good at gathering information, Captain. It is one of the advantages of being able to observe without being observed. As they disembarked onto the station, Crixhan was struck by how normal everything seemed. Despite the advanced technology and alien environment, the humans went about their business with calm efficiency. Children played in the garden areas while adults worked at tasks he could not identify but which seemed purposeful and organized. This way, please, Director Chen said, leading them through corridors that seemed to adjust their lighting and temperature as they passed. The Council is eager to meet with you. We have many questions about your Empire's current policies and future plans. Your questions? Crixhan asked. Surely you must have questions about our technology, our government structure, our military capabilities? Oh, we already know all of that, she replied matter-of-factly. What we want to discuss is more philosophical. We are curious about your Empire's long-term goals. Where do you see galactic civilization heading? What do you believe is the ultimate purpose of interstellar expansion? As they walked, Crixhan realized that everything he thought he knew about first contact was being turned upside down. The humans were not looking to the Empire for guidance or protection. They were not seeking membership or alliance. They were not even particularly impressed by Empire technology. Instead, they seemed to be evaluating the Empire itself, judging whether it was worthy of their attention. Director Chen, he said carefully, what exactly do your people want from this contact? She stopped and turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. That is an excellent question, Ambassador. What we want is to understand whether your empire is ready for the kind of relationship we might be willing to offer. What kind of relationship? One between equals, she said simply. We have been watching galactic civilization for centuries, waiting for it to mature enough for that kind of partnership. The question is, has it? The council chamber was unlike any governmental meeting space Ambassador Crixhan had ever seen. Instead of the formal tables and rigid hierarchies typical of Empire meetings, the humans had created a circular space with comfortable seating arranged in organic patterns. Natural light filtered through what appeared to be transparent walls that showed the stars beyond, and the gentle sound of moving water came from streams that flowed through the room. 12 humans sat in the circle, representing. What Director Chen had explained were the various regions of their hidden civilization. They ranged in age from young adults to elderly individuals, and they all regarded the Empire delegation with calm, intelligent interest. "Please, sit wherever you feel comfortable," Director Chen said, gesturing to the available spaces. "We do not stand on ceremony here." Ambassador Crixhan chose a seat that allowed him to see all the human representatives. Captain Thelnax and the other Empire delegates arranged themselves nearby, still somewhat overwhelmed by the casual nature of what should have been a momentous historical meeting. "Before we begin formal discussions," said an elderly human male with silver hair, "we thought you might appreciate understanding exactly what you have discovered. I am Dr. Marcus Webb, and I have been serving as our civilization's historian for the past 60 years. We would be honored to learn more," Crixhan replied formally. Dr. Webb activated a holographic display that materialized in the center of the circle. It showed a three-dimensional map of local space, with the Empire's known territories marked in blue and the hidden human systems marked in green. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, roughly 600 years ago, we made an interesting discovery, Dr. Webb began. "We were not alone. Our first exploratory missions detected the electromagnetic signatures of multiple spacefaring civilizations, including what was then the early Zephyrian Republic." The hologram shifted, showing the expansion of both human and Empire territories over the centuries. "We faced a choice that every species faces when they discover they are not unique in the universe. We could announce our presence and seek contact. We could attempt to conquer and expand, or we could observe and learn. We chose the third option." "Why?" asked Captain Thelnax. "Most species are eager to join the galactic community," a younger human woman with short auburn hair answered. "I am Dr. Lisa Park, our xenosociologist. We studied the patterns of galactic expansion and found them troubling. Most spacefaring civilizations follow similar paths: rapid expansion, conflict over resources, the subjugation or destruction of less advanced species, and eventually, the formation of large imperial structures that maintain peace through superior force." The holographic display showed the rise and fall of several galactic empires over the past millennium, including the Zephyrian Empire's own expansion. "We decided to try a different approach," Dr. Webb continued. "Instead of expanding visibly, we would expand quietly. Instead of conquering worlds, we would terraform uninhabited systems. Instead of forcing contact with other species, we would observe and learn from them." "But how?" Crixhan asked. "How did you hide entire star systems?" A middle-aged human male with kind eyes and calloused hands stood up. "I am Engineer Tom Harrison. I can answer that question." The hologram shifted to show the technical details. Of the gravitational shrouding system, we developed what we call gravitational lensing technology. By placing specialized generators at the edge of our systems, we can bend space-time in such a way that electromagnetic radiation from our worlds is redirected around our territory. To outside observers, the light from our stars appears to come from empty space far behind our actual location. Dr. Nimra, the Empire's science officer, leaned forward intently. "That would require incredible precision and enormous amounts of energy." "The precision, yes," Engineer Harrison agreed. "The energy, not so much. We learned to work with natural, gravitational fields rather than fighting against them. Our technology enhances existing cosmic forces rather than creating new ones." "This is revolutionary," Dr. Nimra whispered. "The applications for this technology are vast, yes," said Director Chen. "But that brings us to an important point. We did not develop this technology for military purposes. We developed it to ensure our privacy while we grew and learned." The holographic display shifted again, now showing the internal structure of the human civilization. Hundreds of worlds connected by trade routes and communication networks, all hidden behind the gravitational veil. Over the past 6 centuries, we have built a civilization based on different principles than most galactic powers, Dr. Webb explained. Rather than expanding through conquest, we expand through careful colonization of uninhabited systems. Rather than exploiting other species, we study them from a distance. Rather than imposing our culture on others, we learn from the diversity of galactic civilization. You have been studying us for 600 years? Crixhan asked, feeling somewhat unsettled by the idea. Studying everyone, corrected Dr. Park. We have observational posts throughout the galaxy. We have detailed records of the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. We have watched species make first contact, join galactic federations, rebel against imperial rule, and sometimes destroy themselves entirely. To what end? Captain Thelnax asked. What is the purpose of all this observation? An elderly human woman with wise eyes answered. I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, our philosopher and ethicist. The purpose is understanding. We believe that successful interstellar civilization requires wisdom, not just technology. We have been waiting for galactic civilization to mature enough for true cooperation between equals. And what have you concluded from your observations? Crixhan asked carefully. That most galactic civilizations, including your empire, are still in their adolescent phase, Dr. Vasquez said gently. You have the technology to span the stars, but you still think in terms of dominance and submission, expansion and conquest. You measure success by the number of worlds you control, rather than by the well-being of your people. This statement caused some tension among the Empire delegates. Captain Thelnax bristled slightly. The Empire has brought peace and prosperity to nearly 1,000 worlds. Through superior force, Dr. Park observed. We have studied your history, Captain. Your peace is maintained by the threat of overwhelming military response. Your prosperity is built on the efficient exploitation of member worlds' resources. This is not cooperation. It is sophisticated tyranny. Then what would you call your own civilization? Crixhan asked, trying to keep his tone diplomatic despite feeling defensive. Doctor, Webb smiled. An experiment. We are trying to prove that a spacefaring civilization can exist without expanding through conquest, can prosper without exploiting others, and can maintain peace through genuine cooperation rather than superior force. And how has this experiment progressed? Better than we had hoped, Director Chen answered. We now inhabit over 300 systems with a total population of approximately 50 billion humans. We have no internal conflicts, no resource shortages, and no military forces in the traditional sense. Dr. Nimra looked skeptical. No military forces? How do you defend yourselves? Engineer Harrison answered. Our primary defense is our invisibility. It is difficult to attack what you cannot find. Beyond that, our technology allows us to relocate entire populations if necessary. We can move faster and hide more effectively than any conventional military force. But surely you have conflicts over resources, territory, governance, Captain? Thelnax asked. Surprisingly few, said Dr. Vasquez. When you remove the pressure of external threats and the drive for expansion, most sources of conflict disappear. We have more resources than we need because we choose our worlds carefully and use them efficiently. We have no territorial disputes because there is plenty of empty space for everyone. We have stable governance because our leaders are chosen, for wisdom and competence rather than for their ability to wage war. Ambassador Crixhan sat back in his chair, trying to process what he was hearing. You are describing a utopia. Not a utopia, Dr. Webb corrected. A mature civilization. We still have problems, disagreements, and challenges, but we address them through cooperation and rational discussion rather than through force and domination. The room fell silent as the Empire delegates considered the implications of what they had learned. Finally, Crixhan asked the question that was weighing on all their minds. What do you want from us? Why reveal yourselves now? Director Chen looked around the circle at her fellow humans before answering. Because we believe your empire may finally be ready to move beyond its adolescent phase. Some of your recent policies suggest a growing understanding that cooperation works better than coercion. We want to offer you the chance to learn from our experiment." "And if we refuse?" Captain Thelnax asked. "Then we continue our observation and wait for the next opportunity," she replied simply. "We are very patient people, Captain. We have been waiting for 6 centuries. We can wait longer if necessary." The morning of the 3rd day brought a formal session that would determine the future relationship between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. Ambassador Crixahan had spent the previous evening in long communication with Empire Command, trying to explain the unprecedented situation he found himself in. The response from his superiors had been predictable: offer the humans membership in the Empire, access to galactic trade networks, and protection under Empire law. Now, as he sat across from Director Chen and the Human Council, he prepared to make what he expected would be a welcome offer. "Director Chen, honored members of the Human Council," he began formally. "After extensive discussions with my government, I am authorized to offer humanity full membership in the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. This would include representation in the Imperial Senate, access to our trade networks, and the protection of our military forces." The silence that followed was not the grateful acceptance he had expected. Instead, the humans exchanged glances that seemed to communicate volumes without words. Director Chen spoke gently. "Ambassador Crixhan, we are honored by your offer, but we must respectfully decline." "Decline?" Captain Thelnax looked shocked. "Director, with respect, no species has ever declined membership in the Empire. The benefits are enormous." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the philosopher, answered with a patient smile. "Captain, we have spent 6 centuries building a civilization based on principles that are fundamentally different from your empire's structure. Joining your system would require us to abandon everything we have worked to achieve." "I do not understand," Crixhan admitted. "What principles?" Dr. Marcus Webb activated the holographic display again, showing a comparison between Empire and human governmental structures. "Your Empire, despite its good intentions, is built on a hierarchical system, where power flows downward from central authority. Decisions are made by a small group of leaders and imposed on member worlds through a combination of economic incentives and military pressure. That system has brought peace to nearly 1,000 worlds," Captain Thelnax protested. "A peace maintained by the threat of force," Dr. Lisa Park observed. "We have studied your methods, Captain. When member worlds resist imperial policy, you send peacekeepers. When they refuse to comply with trade regulations, you impose sanctions. When they attempt to leave the Empire, you prevent them with military action." The Empire delegates looked uncomfortable. These were not secrets, but having them stated so bluntly by outsiders was unsettling. "What alternative do you propose?" Crixhan asked. "We do not propose anything for your empire," Director Chen said. "Your civilization must find its own path to maturity. But we can offer something else, an exchange program that might benefit both our peoples." "What kind of exchange?" Dr. Nimra asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her diplomatic caution. Engineer Tom Harrison stood and gestured to the holographic display. "We would like to share some of our technological developments with your scientists, and we would welcome the opportunity to learn from your achievements as well." The display showed a 3-dimensional model of what appeared to be a revolutionary spacecraft design. "This is our latest development in dimensional engineering," Harrison explained. "Instead of moving through space, this vessel moves through folded dimensions. It can travel between any 2 points in the galaxy almost instantaneously." Dr. Nimra gasped. "That is impossible. The energy requirements alone are minimal when you work with natural dimensional folding rather than against it," Harrison continued. "Much like our gravitational lensing technology, this works by enhancing existing cosmic phenomena rather than creating new ones." He changed the display to show another innovation. "We have also developed what we call quantum archaeology, the ability to reconstruct historical events by analyzing quantum resonance patterns left behind by past activities. You can see into the past? Captain Thelnax asked incredulously. Within limits, yes. We have used this technology to study the development of various galactic civilizations, including the true history of many worlds that are now part of your empire. Crixhan felt a chill. What do you mean by true history? Dr. Park answered. We know, for example, that the Vardian rebellion was not the unprovoked terrorist attack your historical records claim. We know that the Morlax species did not voluntarily join the Empire after their first contact. We know that at least 17 member worlds have attempted to leave the Empire peacefully and were prevented from doing so by military intervention. The main room fell silent. These were state secrets, known only to the highest levels of Empire government. How could you know these things? Crixhan whispered. Quantum archaeology does not lie, Dr. Webb said gently. The universe remembers everything, Ambassador. We simply learned how to ask it the right questions. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. This brings us to what we would like from your people in exchange. We want to understand your governmental philosophy. How do you justify maintaining an empire through force? How do you reconcile your stated goals of peace and prosperity with your methods of coercion and control? We do what is necessary to maintain order, Captain Thelnax said defensively. But is it necessary? Dr. Park asked. Our observations suggest that most conflicts between member worlds and the Empire arise from the Empire's policies themselves. Species rebel because they feel oppressed, not because they are naturally violent. You are proposing that we abandon the very structure that has brought stability to the galaxy? Crixhan asked. We are not proposing anything, Director Chen repeated. We are offering to share our experience with alternative approaches to interstellar governance. Whether you choose to learn from that experience is entirely up to you. Dr. Nimra, who had been studying the technological displays intently, spoke up. The scientific exchange alone would be invaluable. These technologies could revolutionize our understanding of space-time manipulation. Indeed, Harrison agreed. And your Empire's achievements in quantum computing and energy storage could help us solve some persistent challenges in our own development. What would this exchange look like in practice? Crixhan asked. Director Chen smiled. We propose the establishment of joint research stations where our scientists can work together. We also suggest cultural exchange programs where your people can observe our governmental processes while our people study your administrative systems. And military technology? Captain Thelnax asked. We have no military technology in the traditional sense, Dr. Vasquez explained. Our defensive capabilities are based on concealment and mobility rather than weapons and armor. However, we would be willing to share our transportation and stealth technologies. Dr. Webb added, we would also like to propose that your empire consider establishing a neutral zone where species could experiment with alternative forms of government. Think of it as a laboratory for political innovation. You want us to allow rebellion? Captain Thelnax asked, alarmed. We want you to allow evolution, Dr. Park corrected. Civilizations, like species, must be allowed to grow and change, or they stagnate and die. Your empire has maintained stability for centuries, but at the cost of preventing growth. Crixhan considered carefully. The technologies the humans were offering could advance empire science by centuries, but the political implications of their proposals were staggering. What guarantees do we have that this exchange will not undermine empire stability? He asked. None, Director Chen said honestly. Change always involves risk, but the alternative is stagnation. Your empire cannot maintain its current structure forever, Ambassador. Eventually, your member worlds will demand genuine self-determination rather than benevolent tyranny. And if they do, then you can either evolve into something better or watch your empire collapse like so many others before it, Dr. Vasquez said gently. We have observed this pattern many times throughout galactic history. The Empire delegates spent several hours discussing the proposal privately. When they returned to the council chamber, Krixhan had reached a decision. "We are willing to begin." "A limited exchange program," he announced. "Joint scientific research stations and small-scale cultural exchanges. But any larger changes to Empire policy would require approval from the highest levels of government." "That is all we ask," Director Chen replied. "Understanding begins with small steps. We have waited 6 centuries for this opportunity. We can be patient a little longer." As the formal agreements were drafted, Krixhan could not shake the feeling that he was witnessing a turning point in galactic history. Whether it would lead to positive change or dangerous instability remained to be seen. But there was no doubt that the discovery of human civilization would force the Empire to question everything it thought it knew about governance, technology, and the nature of interstellar society. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy was a different place. Word of humanity's hidden civilization had spread through the Empire's communication networks faster than official channels could control it. Every species in the Empire now knew that for centuries, an advanced civilization had been watching them from the shadows, and many were asking uncomfortable questions about what this meant for their own societies. Ambassador Krixhan stood on the observation deck of Research Station Alpha, the first joint human-Empire facility, watching ships from dozens of different species arrive for what had become known as the Galactic Symposium on Alternative Governance. What had started as a small scientific exchange had grown into something much larger and more significant. "The response has been remarkable," said Director Chen, joining him at the viewing portal. "We never expected this level of interest." Through the transparent wall, they could see representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had traveled from the farthest reaches of the Empire to attend the symposium. Some were official delegations sent by their governments, but many were independent groups seeking alternatives to imperial rule. "The Empire leadership is not pleased," Krixhan admitted. "They feel that the situation is becoming destabilized." "Change is always destabilizing," Dr. Elena Vasquez observed, approaching from behind them. "The question is whether it leads to growth or collapse." The past 6 months had indeed been turbulent for the Empire. The joint research projects had produced technological breakthroughs that amazed scientists on both sides, but they had also raised difficult questions about the Empire's approach to innovation and development. Human scientists worked in collaborative teams where ideas flowed freely, while Empire scientists were used to rigid hierarchies and controlled information sharing. More significantly, the cultural exchange programs had exposed thousands of Empire citizens to human society. They had seen worlds where decisions were made through consensus rather than decree, where conflicts were resolved through mediation rather than force, and where diversity was celebrated rather than merely tolerated. "Dr. Vasquez," Krixhan said, "our intelligence report suggests that several member worlds are considering declaring independence from the Empire. They cite human civilization as proof that alternatives to imperial rule are possible." "Are you asking us to discourage them?" she replied. "I am asking if you understand the chaos that could result if the Empire fragments." Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a moment, looking out at the assembled ships. "Ambassador, we have studied the history of many galactic empires. They all eventually face the same choice: evolve into something more collaborative, or fragment into smaller, more sustainable communities. Neither outcome is inherently chaotic if managed wisely. Easy to say when you are not responsible for maintaining peace across 1,000 worlds," Krixhan said. Director Chen turned to face him. "What if you did not have to maintain it? What if peace maintained itself?" Before Krixhan could ask what she meant, an announcement echoed through the station. The symposium was about to begin. The main assembly hall was unlike any conference room Krixhan had ever seen. Instead of rigid seating arrangements and formal podiums, the humans had created a circular space with multiple levels of comfortable seating that allowed all participants to see and hear each other clearly. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in mixed groups, with no separation by species or political affiliation. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the center of the circle to open the proceedings. Friends, colleagues, fellow travelers in this vast galaxy, we gather today not to overthrow governments or start revolutions, but to share knowledge and explore possibilities. For the past 6 months, many of you have observed our civilization and asked how we achieve stability without force, prosperity without exploitation, and unity without uniformity. A representative from the Carthan system, a species known for their analytical minds, raised a hand. Dr. Webb, our observations suggest that human society works because humans share common biological and cultural foundations. How can these principles apply to the diverse species of the Empire? Dr. Lisa Park answered. An excellent question. We believe the key is not in sharing common biology, but in sharing common principles. Respect for individual autonomy, commitment to collective well-being, and the understanding that diversity strengthens rather than weakens society. But how do you enforce these principles without a central authority? Asked a delegate from the Meraxian Federation. Engineer Tom Harrison activated a holographic display showing the structure of human governance. We do not enforce them, we enable them. Our governmental systems are designed to make cooperation easier and more beneficial than conflict. When working together produces better results than working alone, people choose cooperation naturally. A young Zephyrian officer spoke up. That sounds idealistic. What happens when some individuals or groups choose to act against collective interests? It happens rarely, Dr. Elena Vasquez answered. When you remove the conditions that encourage selfish behavior, scarcity, fear, powerlessness, antisocial, behavior becomes uncommon. But when it does occur, we address it through restorative rather than punitive measures. Restorative measures? The officer asked. We focus on understanding why someone chose harmful behavior and addressing the underlying causes, rather than simply punishing the behavior itself, she explained. In most cases, harmful actions result from unmet needs or unresolved conflicts that can be addressed through dialogue and support. An elder from the Corvani species, known for their wisdom and long lifespans, stood slowly. Young humans, what you describe sounds similar to principles my people practiced before we joined the Empire. But we abandoned them because they seemed unsuited to the realities of interstellar politics. Dr. Webb nodded respectfully. Elder Corvith, we have studied your people's history. Your traditional governance systems were indeed similar to ours, but you abandoned them because you were forced to compete with more aggressive, hierarchical civilizations. What if you did not have to compete? What if cooperation was the norm rather than the exception? You are describing a fundamental change in the nature of galactic civilization, the elder observed. Yes, Director Chen said simply. We are. The discussions continued for days, with representatives sharing their experiences and exploring possibilities. Some were skeptical, arguing that human principles could not work on the scale of galactic civilization. Others were enthusiastic, seeing opportunities to address long-standing problems in their own societies. On the final day of the symposium, an unexpected announcement came from the Empire itself. High Admiral Zelmoth, one of the most senior leaders in the Imperial hierarchy, arrived with a small fleet and requested permission to address the assembly. Crixhan was surprised to see his old colleague and mentor. Admiral Zelmoth was known as a traditionalist who believed strongly in imperial authority. I come not as a representative of the Empire, the Admiral announced, but as an observer who has spent considerable time studying the reports from this exchange program. He paused, looking around the circular assembly. 6 months ago, I would have dismissed everything discussed here as naive idealism. But the evidence is difficult to ignore. Human civilization has achieved remarkable stability and prosperity, using methods that contradict everything we thought we knew about effective governance. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembly. More importantly, the Admiral continued. I have reviewed classified Imperial studies that show troubling trends in our member worlds. Social unrest is increasing, economic disparities are growing, and requests for independence are becoming more frequent. The current system is not sustainable. He looked directly at Director Chen. The Empire is prepared to establish the neutral zone you proposed, a region where member worlds can experiment with alternative governmental systems without fear of Imperial interference. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of species representatives stood to volunteer their worlds for inclusion in the experimental zone. There will be conditions, Admiral Zelmoth continued. Participation must be voluntary, experiments must be conducted peacefully, and results must be shared with all participants. But if successful, these experiments could guide the evolution of Imperial policy. As the symposium concluded, Crixhan found himself standing once again with Director Chen on the observation deck, watching the departing ships. "This is not what I expected when we first made contact," he admitted. "Change rarely happens the way we expect," she replied, "but it happens nonetheless. Your empire stands at a crossroads, Ambassador. You can resist change and eventually fragment, or you can guide it and evolve into something better. And if we choose evolution, then perhaps in another few centuries the galaxy will have learned that civilization does not require domination, that peace does not require force, and that diversity is not a threat to be contained, but a strength to be celebrated." As the last ships departed, carrying representatives back to their worlds with new ideas and new possibilities, Crixhan realized that the discovery of human civilization had done more than reveal a hidden people. It had revealed the hidden potential of galactic civilization itself. The Empire would never be the same. Whether that change led to a